So, as our outline, what are if you're going to talk about, if you had like 5 minutes to talk about the scenario here and what you think is likely to happen and what people should be expecting, what would you say?
The San Bernardino Front Country between San Bernardino and Yucaipa has everything you need for a fire to get big. It's got pretty good winds in the afternoon. It's got heavy fuels that haven't burned since the 90s in most places. And it's got um, steep terrain leading up to the mountain communities. All the factors are there.
All right, I'm here with Tim Chavez. Tim Chavez is a retired Cal Fire firefighter from Southern California and kind of a veteran fire behavior analyst and expert on the geography and fire history and everything fire Southern California. Met Tim in 1999 on my first fire assignment with Cal Fire as a mapping contractor, and then I talked to someone on the fire one time. I said, Tim Chavez was on my first fire, and he said, Tim was on everyone's first big fire. So we got a big fire, kind of in Tim's backyard, and I thought it'd be cool to, since we don't do a lot in Southern California, and it's kind of there's a lot of blank spots in my knowledge of that place. I thought it'd be cool to get Tim on here to talk. So welcome, Tim.
Hey, Zeke, how's it going?
Great. I like your backdrop, by the way.
Thanks.
Yeah. So we were just talking about this fire that we've got here, the line fire, and you were talking about how the geography down there of the front country above San Bernardino really lends itself to fast fire growth. The few times I've been down there to like Arrowhead and the country on top of the mountains above San Bernardino, I always wondered, like, why doesn't this happen more often?
They call it the San Bernardino Front Country. It used to be the Mill Creek district of the San Bernardino Forest, and then they consolidated it. And so everything from the Angeles all the way to Banning to Cabazon is now the Front Country district. But the Front Country, what I think of as the Front Country, and where the fires are kind of they do similar things, is from the Cajon Pass to the San Gorgonio Pass. Cajon Pass fires do their thing because of the way um, the air funnels through the Cajon Pass from south to north most summer days, and from north to south, and when you have an offshore. And the San Gorgonio Pass does its thing with most summer days. There's pretty good wind from west to east, and then east to west in the offshore days. So
So that's that
um,
past San Gorgonio. That's on Highway 10. Is that right?
yeah,
Over
10 the
here.
10 freeway through Cabazon, Beaumont, and Banning.
All right. So you're talking about Cajon Pass here is on Highway 15 north of San Bernardino, and
Yep.
so you're saying that the front country, San Bernardino front country, is basically the mountain range between there.
Yeah, kind of everything in between.
And what's that mountain range called?
It's the San Bernardino Mountains.
Okay,
The highest peak is San Gorgonio Peak, which is almost 12,000,
got it. That's up here.
and the valley floor is about 1,000. So it's, I mean, it's not like Northern California river canyon country, but it's steep because of the sufficient moisture. The brush gets big when it gets to be 20, 30, 40 years old. The brush is tall, not unusual for it to be 10, 12 feet tall. Mixed mostly chamise, but mixed with manzanita and toyon and ceanothus. And this particular fire has a pretty, the major feature that's probably going to influence it the most is the Santa Ana River, which is that sandy wash that you can see kind of on the right flank of the fire right now.
Got it.
Um, Santa Ana River drains a big chunk of Southern California, and along, any place where water drains, air drains. So air goes up and down the Santa Ana every day, all day.
Yeah. So we've
So
got
it,
some historic fires on here. Just for reference, as we're showing this, we've got a fire here, the slide fire from 2007 that ran right through Running Springs. And over here we've got the El Dorado fire, which that was famously started by a gender reveal firework, right?
that's the
2020.
one.
And then
Yeah,
we've got the
most fires on the front country, they 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 respond to the terrain and go to the top. There's the Highway 18 is called the Rim of the World Highway because when you're up there, it really looks like the rim of the world. I mean, it doesn't on Google Earth it doesn't look like it, but man, when you're on Highway 18 looking down, San Bernardino is straight down to San Bernardino. I mean, it's really steep. Um, and there's not too many intermediate mid slope roads. Even if you were foolish enough to try to hold the fire mid slope, there's no opportunities, not many.
yeah.
Um, and you get basically two kinds of fires. You get the June, July, August, September type fire that runs from the valley up, or you get the October, November, December fires that run from the top of the mountain down. And there's some pretty famous old fires here. The old fire being one of them.
Yeah, so I just turned on the old fire. That's red. So where did the old fire start?
So it started on Highway 18 uh, near Panorama Point. Well, yeah, one of those big switchbacks right there is where the fire started. It was an arson fire, and it was a very significant Santa Ana wind day. So the fire ran down into San Bernardino, burned up the neighborhoods there in North Park and north part of San Bernardino. And then when the sea breeze reestablished itself, it went out into the desert. You could see those two big lobes of the fire that burned out into the desert past Highway 18. Um, that was when the transition happened from offshore to onshore.
Yeah, it's kind of similar to the Cedar Fire where it turned around and ran back to the east.
Yep.
All right, so coming down here to our current fire, um, what do you expect is going to happen here in the next couple days? You want to talk about forecasts? Yeah, so here we got kind of the big picture, West Coast view, and yeah, you can see it looks like there's some buildup here over the mountains today.
Yeah, we had some weak buildups yesterday, and I just heard the San Bernardino going on a lightning strike just a few minutes ago. So there's a little pop up over the Idlewild area right now, but I mean, and you can see there's some up there. So
Yeah,
a downburst from one of these is not out of the question today. That's definitely something we need to watch out for because that, as you know, that could drive the fire in all kinds of directions that nobody anticipated, which would not be good.
yeah.
Um,
So given the kind of the current situation of where it's at, where do you expect um, if it continues with the current conditions, where do you expect they'll pick it up?
I would imagine once it comes out into the road system, the significant, road system,
Up
the
in here?
paved road system. I mean, there's a couple of forest roads in between, but once it gets up into Highway 18 and 330 area, there's going to be many more opportunities. First of all, the slope diminishes significantly, and then you have roads where you can get engines and you can get people in and you can go to work. And like I said, there hasn't been
So you're,
significant winds, so
so you're talking about this margin here?
yep, yep. And unfortunately, it's right up against the town of Running Springs, so we're
Yeah,
going to have to deal with that.
there's a ton of structures out there. I'm going to turn on structure layer here.
Yeah, I don't know what the population of Running Springs is, but it's significant. I don't see a lot of opportunity there. There's that 1N09 road that kind of you can see it kind of meandering through that little slough there.
Here,
Yeah, um, that's your only opportunity to do something before it gets to Running Springs and Smiley Park and Fredalba and Arrow Bear and all those little communities up there. So I know they're evaluating all the options right
yeah.
now.
Okay. So as far as it in the canyon here, moving up towards Bear Creek here and up the Santa Ana, uh, how fires typically been fought in this country here?
Well,
But
typically in the summer, you just like everywhere, all the time, you wait for the weather to change and then you go after it. If it's this thing's 7,000 plus acres now, and it's burned that in 2 days. Um, so an old grizzled fire captain one time told me, and I'm sure I've told you this before, that this whole putting fires out is all about having the right people in the right place at the right time when the weather changes, and
mhm.
that's pretty much what we're going to have to do is
And that
either a
under the
terrain change or a weather change is the only thing that's going to make it actionable.
so has it been pretty hot down there for you guys?
Yeah, it was 114 yesterday. It was about that the day before. And
So
again,
basically, under those conditions, there's not a lot of firefighting that in this kind of country we're not going to succeed with much until we get a change in weather.
no, and the thing of it is the high temperatures. Yeah, it makes it miserable to fight fire, and the fire takes advantage. But the evaporative demand on the fuels, like our overnight low last night here where I live at 2,000 feet, was 85, I think. So when you have fuels that are, these are fairly aged, significantly aged fuels. They've been haven't burned since the old fire, I don't think. Um, so they've been under some pretty heavy evaporative demand for 72, 84 hours.
Hmm.
And uh, fuels that are stressed like that, they tend to surprise you, and
Yeah, here's a
that includes burning through the night. You know.
yeah. I watched the webcam last night. It's always telling when the webcam turns from infrared back to color in the middle of the night because the flames are so bright.
Yeah, yeah, right.
Yeah. So here's the photo that was shared on the Wildland Fire Forum of regrowth in the old fire. So that's
Yeah,
been 21 years. It reminds me a lot of what the Concal Basin looked like before the campfire. Just this kind of mix of skeletons of old brush. There's all the kind of dead and down from that underneath the brush that's come back in.
yeah. In California, stuff doesn't decay. I mean, that stuff's been standing there for
Yeah, over 20
30
years.
years. It doesn't decay. It just kind of slowly falls down eventually, and so it's all everything except the leaf litter and the leaves on the trees and the branches of the brush. It's all still there. So, as a matter of fact, it's probably even more available now. Some of the bigger stuff. Um,
So,
so it's heavy
I think when
duty.
I started my career, we talked a lot about kind of patterns in Southern California where you don't have the decadent brush until you get slicked off in a fire, and then it takes about 30 years to regrow and have dead material in the brush again. But then we talked recently. You were saying that theory's kind of gone out the window with winds and with extended drought. And so, do you feel like
Yeah.
there's still kind of an interval where an old fire provides a kind of benefit? Like, how long is that?
Well, I can say 25 years ago, we used to really think that brush that was less than 30 years old was fire resistant. Definitely less than 10. If it was less than 10 years old, it was, you could basically count on the fire stopping or slowing down when it got there. But last last 10 years or so, I definitely have not seen that. We've had multiple fires. The one that really showed me that was the Esperanza fire occurred in 2006 under an east wind, Santa Ana type wind, and in 2013 we had the Silver Fire that burned almost the same footprint in the opposite direction and slicked it off. That brush was only 7 years old. Um,
So you're
so
talking about the silver here burned into the Esperanza.
yeah, so
Yeah, it's on the silver fire, and it moved so fast that by the time we got there from Northern California, the fire was out.
well, that and that's California most of the summer.
Yeah,
Uh,
so here you're talking. This is Esperanza, and then
yeah,
this is uh, the
silver
silver. Is
and
you got
blue.
too many fires? They'll stack up here.
Yeah.
All right. So in that vein, then you're saying that we can't count on this 2007 slide fire to really provide any guaranteed benefit of reducing fire behavior on this fire.
Yeah, I just don't. I don't think it's going to be. I mean, I don't know if the forest has done any fuels work in there to take advantage of that old burn. It's possible that they have, but in the like I said, in the last few years, 7 to 10 year old brush has not been that helpful.
Yeah.
And granted, in the on the Silver Fire, there was a pretty strong westerly wind, which is not unusual when you get onshore. Um, but right now, under this heat dome, we just don't have any kind of a onshore wind blowing. So um, that's going to be the critical time frame, I think, is when the ridge breaks down. Classic upper ridge breakdown, and the marine layer does come back. There's going to be a 12 to 24 hour period where the fire could really move under a westerly wind.
All right. So I just pulled up the 7 day outlook. Doesn't have any kind of high risk flags or anything for lightning or wind, and it says high pressure will be centered near Four Corners through Monday. Trough will drop down the west coast Tuesday and Wednesday and remain in place through the end of next week. Yeah, so it looks like we got high pressure, and the trough's going to drop down Tuesday and Wednesday. So you're saying that when that happens, it's kind of a watch out because we're going to have a change and we might get some winds.
Yeah, we're gonna. It's instead of like an offshore situation when the offshore subsides and the onshore comes in, like you said, multiple fires have gotten big, people have gotten hurt, bad things happen. But in this case, we were basically going from no wind or just very weak 8 to 15 mile terrain driven winds to there might be a brief period where the onshore before the marine layer comes in.
Yeah, here it says that southwest to northwest winds of 20 to 30 miles an hour with gusts to 50 will surface across the mountain ridges and desert passes Tuesday afternoon through Wednesday evening. And significant cooling will occur Tuesday and Wednesday. So you're saying that's because of the marine layer. Okay, and then it's going to warm back up by Friday. So on the map, then it says minimum
Yeah,
humidity will be between 12 and 25 above and inland from the
yeah,
marine layer through the end of the next week, and widespread single digits Tuesday. So yeah, that sounds like multiple watch outs. You got single digits, you got big winds forecast, and just general arrival wind. So what's that? If we look at our fire and think out like, um, it's only Saturday, right? So we're saying that Sunday, Monday, we got 2.5 full days of burning before that event happens. Um, so what's your crystal ball tell you about where this thing might be
yeah.
when that event arrives? I know we talk about like, okay, it's 7,000 acres today. It's going to be at least 14,000 tomorrow.
Well, it took 2 days to get to 7,000, so um, I'd
So
say
it'll be
maybe
well
10,000
established out in the air.
tomorrow and 14,000 the next day. So I would I would say the wild card is if they're able to keep it on one side of the Santa Ana River, then it'll just continue its progress kind of to the northeast. But if it crosses the Santa Ana River, that slope there is pretty.
Yeah. So El Dorado is
I
2020.
think
Do you think
so.
that
That
that'll
thing burns
provide
so hot,
significant
especially
benefit?
in that particular area along Highway 38, that there's not much. It did. There not much came back.
Okay. So
Aircraft to be really effective, I think.
would you say with that forecast we have for Tuesday and the potential for the fire to grow between now and then out in this that we could be looking at a threat to Big Bear Lake area with when that fire comes?
You know what, Zeke, you can't rule it out. I would say what is it? What is it you say? Imagine it happening. because
Plan on it happening.
plan on it happening because what fires have done. You know, look at what the Park Fire did. I mean, I don't know anybody that expected that thing to be 30,000 acres or whatever it was the first day.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so with that in mind, you know,
Well, I think in a fire like the old fire, it shows you that we have, in our history, we have potential for fires to be 30 miles long, right?
oh, for sure.
So old fire here is 23 miles long.
And there's a historical fire called the Bear Fire that started at the Big Bear Lake Dam and burned down to Ukaipa, but that was a Santa Ana wind-driven fire again. But yeah,
Yeah, right now.
wind-driven, wind-driven,
Yeah.
not out of the question.
Yeah, so the fire's 8 miles right now, about 8.5 miles west of Big Bear.
And about 2 miles from Running Springs, 2.5 maybe.
All right. So what else? Anything else you want to show on maps or talk about as far as the geography here?
Well, the one thing that I wanted to say was that it'd be very unusual for it to go much farther than that. I don't, you know, it's not going to go up and over the ridge out into the desert uh, with a lack of strong winds. Very few fires have done that. We had one called the Willow Fire a few years back that started in the Lake Arrowhead area and burned out into the desert. So it's unlikely that it would go much further. But again, once you get past that little ribbon of Highway 18, where it's relatively flat and people have built communities, um, some of the ruggedest country in California is on that backside in that Holcomb Valley, um, out in through Grapevine, Arastra Canyon, and all that. It's really rough.
Yeah.
Rough terrain, no roads. But
And
I think
why haven't we had a large fire history out in there?
I think because I suspect, I don't have anything to base this on, but I suspect that the upslope on the desert side that's thermally driven kind of causes a blocking airflow to the upslope on the coast side. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so the winds that come, these canyon kind of influenced winds, and the winds that are funneled through the Santa Ana, you're saying they pile up against winds that are coming the other direction.
Yeah, I think so. I just have not seen. I mean, you can see from. You don't have all the fire history turned on, but there's not many fires that have gone up and over.
Yeah, so here's kind of all the fire history. So you've got the Butler 2. What's this yellow one? So the Bear, this is what you talked about, 1970.
Yeah,
You're saying the Bear started here and ran all the way down the valley.
yeah,
You got here's the Willow, is the one you talked about.
yeah. And you know, I mean, another thing that's really changed, and I don't know if you want to get into this or not, but September used to be really prone to getting offshore winds. I mean, you know, think about some historical big fires in San Diego County, the Boulder Fire, and you know some of those fires were in September. But the last 25 or 30 years, we just haven't gotten many offshore events in September. They just don't. They just don't happen in September anymore. I don't know. I don't really know what that's about.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of shifted to October, November, December now.
Yeah, yeah, the Thanksgiving fires.
Yep.
All right, so how about Angeles Oaks? You're saying if it crosses Santa Ana River today, that it's bad news for these folks.
Yeah, if it crosses the Santa Ana River, there's just no opportunities to get in there before it gets to Angeles Oaks, Mountain Home Village. But the El Dorado fire will prevent it from going much further.
Mm-hmm.
But those two little communities are kind of, if you've ever been down to Highway 38, they're kind of mid slope.
I never have.
Between the
Yeah, it doesn't look like a spot that a fire scientist would lay out a community.
no,
You do have a fresh burn up here.
I can't remember the name of that little creek that runs along kind of down low below 38, but but that slope between that creek bottom and Highway 38, it's significant. It's steep.
Mountain Home Creek.
Is it Mountain Home Creek? Yeah, I guess it is. Yeah, it's significant. It's steep. And granted, it's going to take a few days for the fire to back in there, so hopefully the weather will change. And I know they've done some fuel modification in those areas about Angeles Oaks and Mountain Home Village. But yeah, that's pretty much.
It doesn't look like a great spot to be standing out in the. Hey, look, there's snow there. We'll be all right.
I mean, it's beautiful country, but it's definitely overstocked and lots of dead and down from the 2000 beetle outbreaks, and you don't want the fire to get in there.
No, you don't. Yeah, photos like this, I can't really look at anywhere anymore and not get the willies.
Yeah.
It's like I saw that picture before. It was in paradise.
Yep.
Yeah, so here's yesterday afternoon in the evening, and then it was chugging right along up until they moved the camera, and then this morning. So why is it smoked in, Tim? This morning. Is that just because we've got the high pressure and no wind?
Yeah, it's this big ridge with no significant wind except, and it's as long as you don't have any solar drive to the upslope, up canyon, the smoke just sits in there.
So do you think that over the next couple of days, is this fire going to be significantly capped? Like, do we get the same kind of smoke effect under the inversion that we have here in our canyons?
No, not that. It doesn't last for till 10 or 11 in the morning. You might get a little mid-slope thermal belt type inversion in the early morning hours, but as soon as the sun is on those slopes, it breaks up because there's nothing on the other side except the Pacific Ocean. So, you know what I mean? It's not like the Klamath, where you have mountains and mountains and mountains.
So where's the Dunlap camera?
It's in Yucaipa, due south.
So it seems like this fire kind of got off to kind of a slow start. Would you say that? Is there anything accurate about that? Like looking at it right here, like, do you feel like it took some time to really build some momentum?
Well, it crested the first set of ridges and kind of slowed down a little bit, but I mean, it has been sort of influenced by the thunderstorm activity. Yesterday, it looked like it had a pretty good little pyro cue over top of it in the late afternoon, like right before sunset, like about this time of the day.
Yeah, 7 p.m.
And that that everything's at the maximum at that point, and then like I said, the problem is we're just not getting any humidity recovery at night, so the vegetation is desiccated. Humidities are in the teens or single digit for 24, 36, 72 hours.
This is it burning at 6 in the morning.
Just not laying down. Southern California fires usually lay down in the morning, and this one is not doing it.
Right, so you see that little bit of inversion there at 6:30.
Yeah, classic thermal belt. About 4 to 6,000 feet. The top of that mountain's only 6,000, so it's not tall, but it's just steep.
Yeah, so here's today, and it's generally cooking right along.
And I think there was maybe a thunderstorm that caused all that, maybe smoke. Maybe there was some outflow winds that blew the smoke around a little bit.
You mean over the past 4 hours or so?
Yeah,
Here. Yeah, so it's really cooking up in here.
Yeah.
So what's that? That's like...
it's definitely on the move.
It's funny how we've gotten so reliant on on fire risk and these things that didn't even exist 5 years ago, and now you're like, where's fire risk? How come I haven't got a perimeter? It's been 2 minutes.
Yeah, I know the night air attack 5-1 has been flying this fire every night, and I'm sure they've been doing perimeters, but I don't know where they're not putting them in the bucket where where everybody can get at it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, it's been really great for the kind of stuff I do to have that access, and I'm glad that some folks have really lobbied to make more of this perimeter data public access, because I think it really helps, improves the literacy of folks around. The better we can tell the story and explain to people how fire works, I think the better off everyone will be.
yeah, ultimately, it's funny. It's turned out to be a better communication tool than almost a tactical tool.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's still that kind of last mile problem of getting the intel. I think that's one of the biggest things that tech entrepreneurs overlook is the kind of the human factors in both delivering the information and people's willingness to rely on it.
Willingness to rely on it, and for it to be dependable enough to rely on. It might work great on one fire, and then the next fire, like you said, you expect it and it's not there, and then you're like, oh, how do I make my decision? Like we did in the old days, I guess.
Yeah, or you're in Orleans and the internet's not working.
Right.
Yeah. Any other cameras you think we should check out?
No, those are the ones I've been watching.
Right. It's
Funny, there's a dearth of kind of cameras that look in there. There's really only 3 or 4 good ones. And the other thing is the air quality in Southern California makes anything more than 20 or 30 miles away pretty much useless.
So your job as a fire behavior analyst really is to help develop the strategy for what should be happening 4 days from now, right?
Well, the next operational period is your focus, and then if you have time, up to 72 hours, that's about all you can rely on.
Yeah. So would you think that folks that are in operations right now are thinking about contingencies for a wind event 3 days from now?
I'm pretty sure they are. I've been talking to some of them. I talked to the fire behavior analyst that's on the team that's taken the fire today. They probably transition at noon or maybe at 6 o'clock tonight. I'm not sure. Cal Fire Team 3, and yeah, he's aware of all this stuff that we've been talking about.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on, Tim. It's a pleasure. I'm going to be calling you often because I think it's great to have you on here to share what you know about SoCal. And
glad to do it.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. And thanks to y'all for supporting Lookout. If there's significant things going on, we'll be putting stuff on Twitter and Facebook. So thanks for helping us out.